Greetings everyone and welcome. It's Sunday once more, which means it's time for yet another episode of the Captain's Table. I am pleased to state that this Sunday's episode of the Captain's Table is in fact recorded at my new apartment. Now, that's not to say that everything went smoothly and I've been able to get into my apartment and unpack, unwind, relax, and get settled into a routine. In fact, quite the opposite. It just happens that I've been able to unpack the key essentials in my new apartment that have allowed me to basically occupy the location. To give a rundown of what happened over the last week, basically, I was planning on doing my big move on Tuesday. Now, Monday was a holiday weekend, but because I had Monday off already, I was able to take Tuesday off as an alternative day. And because after inspecting the apartment on Friday and discussing with the landlord about when it was likely to be ready, I had effectively, tentatively planned to go ahead and move in on Tuesday at some point. Unfortunately, on Monday, I got an email from the landlord basically stating that the unit wasn't ready. Specifically, that while his maintenance guy was able to get in on Sunday and start the turn process and the cleaning process, the carpet cleaners wouldn't be able to get out until Wednesday, and that's when they were scheduled for. So a whole day after I was planning on moving in, and at this point my family and friends were already tentatively scheduled to come in and help me basically move my entire apartment out, pack up what was left, grab the furniture, grab the important stuff, load it up into the U-Haul, pack it up, and keep it overnight starting on Monday, and then unpack it on Tuesday morning. The fact that the carpet cleaners were no longer going to be there until Wednesday, or I should say the second set of carpet cleaners, because the first set apparently never showed up, weren't going to be there until Wednesday, was a bit of a problem. A little bit of a wrench thrown into my plans. However, the lateness of the hour of that change basically meant that I couldn't do anything to change my tentative plans, and effectively, at the end of the day, I packed up my PCs, PC Green and PC Red, that's the gaming PC, the PC that I do all of my important recording on, and of course all my gaming on at this point, at least for the purposes of YouTube's, went offline on Monday afternoon. And when I moved in on Tuesday, sure enough, the carpets hadn't been cleaned. Now, I had stopped by Monday night fairly late, about 10 o'clock at night, mind you, this is on a holiday, to see if I could tentatively unpack some of my stuff, specifically my PCs, maybe get them hooked up and ready to go so that on the move-in on Tuesday, take a little bit of break, maybe do some gaming, maybe get a recording up, I don't know, something along the lines. But the answer was definitely no, because on Monday night at 10 p.m. when I arrived, the maintenance guy was still in the unit painting it. Props to my landlord, who is definitely old school when it comes to doing things. He and his crew basically made sure that I was going to be able to unpack on Tuesday. Not completely, but at the very least move all of my stuff in on Tuesday. The walls would be good to go. I could pack and stack things up against them. And when Tuesday rolled around, that's basically what happened. Unpacked everything up against the walls, Didn't unbox anything, kept my computers out of the way, cleared as much of the floor space as possible for the carpet cleaners, who did, in fact, fortunately, come on Wednesday. Now, Wednesday, I didn't come back to my apartment, or I should say, I didn't come back to my new apartment, but instead went back to my old one. Now, I did have to work on Wednesday, and work was kind of an interesting experience, very almost surreal for multiple reasons that I'll get into in a little bit. But I went back to my old apartment. I cleared out the last few things I had there that I was effectively taking with me. Basically my cleaning supplies, my trash cans, my vacuum cleaner, and made sure to walk the unit one last time, hand in keys, and do a walkthrough with the management, pointing out issues that I had. And the management didn't seem particularly interested in caring about any of the issues that I had. Didn't make any special notes of anything in particular of my apartment. And effectively told me that was the end of that. And then, because it was effectively rush hour and I didn't feel like braving rush hour traffic to go from one end of the city to the other end of the city, I effectively went back to my father's for the evening. Thursday, however, I did get back up, was able to verify that, in fact, the carpet cleaners had come, start unpacking a little bit, got PC Green, my entertainment PC, my old PC, up and running, got the internet hooked up to it, so I know that the internet works. Got the desk set up in place, rearranged some of the furniture ready to go, and then went back to my father's house. On Friday, I finally had a friend and a clanmate able to help and assist me, was able to get my mattress in place, unpack a good chunk of my kitchen, and at least get it to a semi-functional state so that I could finally stay at my new place. Now, this last week has been incredibly tiring for me, and that eerie day, Wednesday, that I mentioned at work was partly due to being effectively exhausted, not necessarily from moving, but as anybody who has managed to reach about the age of 30 will undoubtedly know, especially if you haven't lived with your parents for the better part of 6 or 7 years, this is my case, almost 8 years, will know when you go back and you stay with your parents, even if you sleep in your original bedroom, it's not your bed anymore. More than likely. It's not your room anymore. It isn't your home anymore. It doesn't feel like your space, and so you don't sleep as soundly. You don't sleep nearly as comfortably as you do in your own space. And that was unfortunately my case. As nice as my dad's house is, and the fact that my bird was there, the process of unpacking, the fact that my computers were not available, and the fact that it wasn't my bedroom, the fact that it wasn't my bed anymore, just did not feel right. And ultimately, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night, I did not sleep as well or as comfortably as I had hoped at any point. When I did finally get to inhabit my own space and sleep here on Friday night, even though it was a new space, first time, and you never sleep as well the first time. In fact, that's a scientific study. You don't sleep fully on the first night you spend in a new space. Even with that all in the situation, sleeping on my own mattress in my own space, I actually felt more rested for the amount of sleep that I got than I did at my dad's house. Now, the other reasons that the day on Wednesday at work felt very surreal was basically because the office staff, well, the office wasn't open until 1:30 in the afternoon, which was effectively 6.5 hours into my normal scheduled workday. The manager was out sick with the flu. My supervisor was out sick with strep. I did have my junior tech, and I did have the groundskeeper, or the housekeeper, on site, which basically meant that myself and the junior tech didn't have anything to do for most of the day. We did find things to do, we just didn't have anything that we had to do. There was no urgency, there was no priority on anything, so we got a little bit done here and there. But it was very surreal, basically being at a building that felt closed. And because it was the day after a holiday weekend, well, 2 days after a holiday weekend, with so many people having been out for the weekend, there was surprisingly little to do when it came to dealing with various things, work orders especially. And finally, for much of the day, there was a helicopter hovering nearby or over above our complex. After about the 4th hour, I decided to look it up, and it turned out our city SWAT team had been in a multi-hour standoff with a sheriff's deputy who was on administrative leave in his apartment just a couple blocks away. I don't know what sparked the standoff. I don't know exactly why it ended. I do know that it did end peacefully, but it was a very odd and eerie feeling. But that's not the only major thing, kind of incident to involve the city, at least at my apartment community, or near my apartment community, work related. As Saturday morning, 7 a.m. coming in, very excited, basically just to get the day done with so that I can get home once more to my new apartment, continue unpacking, record some videos, and actually be able to relax for the weekend in my new apartment. And right off the bat, within 10 minutes of arriving at work and clocking in, we had a fire alarm go off. Oh, what fun that was. Although when the fire alarm went off this time, I was actually in the lobby approximately 30 feet from the fire panel. And I got to hear, if you're ever wondering, if you work in security, you work in maintenance, or you just work around those fire panels, if you're ever wondering what exactly transpires, that process before the building goes into full alarm is quite an interesting audio sensation. Basically, I had my back turned to the panel. I didn't see it go into alarm, but I did hear it. I heard the first trouble signals pop up, and then immediately heard multiple rapid trouble signals pop up before the building finally went in to full alarm mode. The whole process took about 15 seconds, and incidentally it took my brain about 15 seconds to register that the alarm panel was about to trip. And it was about the time that I turned around that the strobes and the horns started going off. Fortunately, there was no actual fire. It was just some dumb idiot who decided to put some breakfast on and then leave his apartment. And then come back to find that his breakfast had burnt to a crisp and was still burning. And more than likely, he decided to open his door to the hallway and get some cross ventilation with his balcony, and that just did the opposite of what he wanted, and it flooded our hallway with the smoke from his apartment, where it promptly set off our fire alarm. So embarrassed was he that he didn't bother to tell the maintenance staff, the managerial staff, or the firefighters who arrived on scene that no, it was his fault. He didn't call, he didn't tell us, until we knocked on his door and he answered, his apartment full of smoke. And when asked directly by the firefighters if he had done something, he said, "Oh yeah, that was me." And they basically scolded him like a child. Life pro tip, folks. If you burn food on the stove and your whole building fire alarm goes off, you can't hide from it. Fire panels are very sophisticated. They will basically guide the fire departments, the maintenance, and managerial staff of your apartment community or your condo complex to the nearest smoke detector to your door. They will figure it out eventually. Just come out and say, "Hey, it was my fault. I effectively burned things, and apparently this smoke detector continued to go off, and I couldn't rectify it. So the fire alarm went off." Better you admit it and deal with the consequences directly than effectively have the management and maintenance staff look at you as an incompetent fool for the rest of your tenure at that location. More importantly, by failing to report. That also means if you're renting, we can effectively give you a 10-day notice. And if you do it again in a short period of time, well, you can kiss your home goodbye, as they'll simply evict you. A little bit of tidbit information for you on renters' laws throughout the country. I'm pretty sure that's pretty standard across the country. Anyway, as it stands, new apartment is mostly completed. I've got my kitchen about 3/4 unpacked. Obviously, PC red, PC green, internet up and running. Always important bits. New computer stand, though, is coming on Sunday. Well, today, basically, at some point. And I will hopefully get my monitor elevated to the appropriate height that I can adequately game without causing some neck and back strain on my end. And hopefully some streaming coming soon. And over the next couple of weeks, I'll get the rest of my stuff unpacked. I'll get shelving up. I'll get my figures. I'll get my Lego models all sorted. I'll get my TV in the position that I actually want it, where I want it. New couch, hopefully on the way. New coffee table, which will house my UCS Millennium Falcon, will also hopefully get ordered sometime soon. And I can get a video of the speed build of that up here in ideally the next few months. Anyway, that's it for the Captain's Table this week. I hope every one of you had a wonderful holiday weekend and had a reasonably decent week and weren't nearly as stressed out as I was over everything. Staying at my dad's, the apartment not quite ready, dealing with still moving out the last few things from my last apartment, moving into my new apartment and spending the first night there, dealing with work situations that came up, the surrealness, and of course the one on Saturday. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.